This episode is about minutes 106 through 110 of The Rise of Skywalker with returning guest Samantha Tripp. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan. You can call me Xanthi. And today is all about minutes 106 through 110 of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. In this excerpt of the film, Sidious tells Rey to strike him down, or else her friends will all die. He initiates the ritual, and the Sith disciples start chanting. And then Ben Solo arrives on the scene, bringing with him a new redeemed musical theme. There's a lot of other stuff that happens, but that's the basic gist. It's a great 5 minutes, to be honest, and I'm really excited to have today Sam Tripp back to the show. Now you're newly about to start your PhD, catching you right before you start that. I think this is like your fourth time now on this podcast, which is wild.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and you picked these minutes for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Great minutes. Yeah,
they are great minutes. Yeah,
and musically, there's exciting stuff to talk about. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think? Should I just start playing some from the beginning before we start talking about it? Okay, cool.
Your hatred, your anger. You want to kill me. That is what I want. Kill me, and my spirit will pass into you. As all the Sith live in me. You will be Empress. We will be one.
It's definitely the kind of thing you want to hear your grandfather say.
Yep.
Already, what are your thoughts so far? I have a couple thoughts, but I don't know if they're the same ones.
Yeah. Let's see where to start.
I know. There's a lot.
There's a lot. I think one of the things that struck me, because I just yesterday I was kind of focusing mostly on the 5 minutes, but I then decided to just do a complete rewatch of the film. And
naturally,
just to make sure I remembered
sure.
how this is situated. But I think what really kind of struck me was the lack of sound effects in this. There's some distant thunder and the one lightning bolt or whatever, but it's mostly, the sound world is mostly dominated by Palpatine, with the music kind of taking the second position right under that. And for an action film done in the 21st century, that's, I feel, pretty unusual to have, the whole 5 minutes really, even the battle bits, the sound effects are kind of lower than I would have expected. But yeah, it's just the kind of the Palpatine being omnipresent in the sound world and kind of sounding like he's, I don't know if it's just my headphones, but sounding like he's kind of coming from all around.
Totally.
Which doesn't really match with he's not actually talking that loud when he's when Ian McDiarmid's doing the acting. But the effects that they put on it and the prominence that they put on it in the final mix makes it seem like he's kind of just surrounding everything and all powerful, which I feel works for the scene where he's, kind of in his realm of disciples and all.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's the type of thing that I would not really have known unless I had done a lot of recording myself, because his voice does sound really omnipresent, but I can tell from the character of his voice that he's not yelling. He's not you will be Empress. He's speaking really softly, but it's the gain is up. So it's just it is a very different, I guess, vocal quality that comes through with that. The mic choices in general that they've made, the sound mixing choices. And while there is the sound world of Exegol, especially, in the Citadel when the Sith Eternals start talking or whatever, chanting. It's very, it's like Exegol sound design was made to complement Palpatine's voice almost. It's like was made for him.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like we have the lightning. Let's see. I'm gonna play it again.
Your hatred, your anger. You want to kill me. That is what I want.
Like there, we have.
And my spirit will pass into you.
I guess that's like thunder in the background or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like kind of this distant rumbling.
Yeah. And it's clear that he has everyone's undivided attention. Mm-hmm. That is definitely the main thing that comes across here. I mean, you can tell from the sound quality, like, things about the physical space as well, like how big it is and it's not like muffled. There's not like soft couches in the room and stuff. Yeah, so that does strike me. And then like the meandering string line that we hear there is so like creepy crawly. And I'll play it from the soundtrack. So it can be, and I'll play it like the way that these minutes starts, it kind of cuts off the beginning of the meandering string line, but I'm going to start slightly before so we can get a little bit more context. So this would be at 144 of the track Approaching the Throne, which is on the original soundtrack. Okay. Here we go. Wait, I'm going to start before so we get even more context. We're hearing like what, parallel fourths or something?
I think so. Something.
It's
like
definitely
that,
some planar movement happening. And the fact that it's all like homophonous, is that the word I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah.
All the lines are moving at the same time. And then if we were to
except
go,
for that like really brief counterpoint moment just before these minutes start where like the lower voice kind of echoes the rhythm of the upper voice. But like, yeah, other than that, it's very homorhythmic. It's like everyone's moving together. And it's really just the two lines that are happening here too.
Yeah, it's almost like Palpatine and Rey, or what he hopes will be Rey, but will never be her. Never. If we start at the beginning of that track, on the soundtrack, we can hear the way that it leads in, which is with the basses. Here. And of course, like, so those low bass notes, I mean, this happens in the previous set of minutes, but it kind of is the first thing that sets the approach for, approaching the throne, basically. In fact, that's what Frank Lehman calls an incidental motif, approaching the throne, is those bass, boom, 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 those bass notes. But yeah, by the time we get to this meandering string line, now he's, in the thick of his speech. It's very moving. Bravo. Your hatred, your anger, you want to kill me. That is what I want. And then here's Sith artifacts.
Yep.
Wayfinder. What I think is interesting is like the Sith artifacts motif, which maybe I'll put a screenshot on the screen for people. The Wayfinder motif. like I mentioned this like right from the very first episode of this season because it, shows up very early on in the movie. And it is that string, like, it's that basically it's a major seventh, but there's a lot of stuff in the between.
Yep.
And let's see, I will read. It happens a little bit differently this time than it happens at the beginning of the movie. Let's see. The idea relates very loosely to a wayfinder. These are Frank Lehman's words, not mine. Both are marked by a polychordal oscillation of chromatically related minor triads. So we see G minor, E flat minor, which of course is also reminiscent of the Imperial March. Let's see, or the Emperor. What am I thinking of? Okay, let me just keep reading. Just sharing a family resemblance to map Emperor motifs. Okay. Note in particular underlying chords, a fusion of multiple dark side associative progressions. And that is, the associative progressions are something that I think will be relevant for some other themes that we're hearing in these minutes. And if you're not familiar with associative progressions, they're just like, they're actually quite similar to leitmotifs themselves, in which they are musical material that where there's a pattern involved, where one could give it a name because they're spotting a pattern in which this motif shows up. So it's basically the same thing, but for like chord progressions or like, chord progressions. Yeah. And some, like a lot of them, I think any listener would just be able to tell, like you'll be able to tell even if you can't put a name to it, because it happens very often. Like, I was struck by in the Andor show, like Dedra's theme, which the Andor show did not use any Star Wars motifs.
Nope.
Whatsoever. But Dedra's theme, whether intentionally or not, had the same it had the same like chord progression as the Imperial March. So like subconsciously it still evokes like almost, that it's not like in the same family as the Rebel fanfare. That it's not the same family as like Yoda's theme. That it's in the same family as the Imperial March, even though it's not that theme at all. And so, that's one way that like other composers are able to emulate, and John Williams himself is able to live in his same world while also coming up with new themes, is with actually using the progressions. And then of course, Frank Lehman has a list where he has identified, the main ones from these films. And so, that one would fall under the same one that the Emperor's does, which I guess I should look that up. What was that? Evil, associative progression, evil. Yeah, that would be evil. The one he calls evil deception. G minor, B flat minor. So there's that. Okay, back to the scheduled programming. Okay. One last thing about Palpatine's voice. It's so melodic.
Yes.
He really plays with his tonation. I don't know if that's a word. But yeah. When he says that is what I want, it cracks me up. I just like hearing stuff like that. I want. Like you could do a transcription of this speech.
My spirit will pass into you. As all the Sith live in me. You will be Empress. We will be one.
Okay, there's one more thing I needed to say, which was when it first shows up, the Sith Wayfinder motif, which is, again, it's the... We hear it at the beginning, and it's when Kylo Ren is, slaughtering a bunch of people, a bunch of people from a Sith cult, a different Sith cult, to get the Wayfinder. And the first time we hear it, I swear that I'm not misremembering this, but we'll see in a second, that we hear Kylo Ren's hesitant motif underneath. Do you know what I mean? Like you can almost hear it. You can almost hear it like hinted at, but it doesn't. It's interesting that it doesn't actually play. And I'll play the part from the minutes that I'm talking about. So this would be at like 2:37 of the movie period. So. There it is. I just think it's interesting. I mean, maybe it's because Kylo's Ben now. We don't hear the,
Mm-hmm.
You can almost fill in the gaps of where that used to go.
Yeah, definitely. Or it could just be that he's not on screen at this point.
Oh, for sure. It's probably that. Yeah. But like,
It's interesting to consider it in the fact that he's not Kylo anymore at this point as well. I think it works both ways, I think.
Yeah, and also it just also shows how more in the same family those themes are. Because it also is like just they fit together very well. They're just both kind of like evil sounding, and even though it's not in here, you can hum along and it still fits in there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but like otherwise, the theme is the Wayfinder theme is like in the same key and everything. So like it sounds almost the same, but it clearly there is a part of it that's not there.
Yeah, and it's also like interesting having it come off immediately from that like meandering line because suddenly we are in some sense of tonality, whereas like kind of that meandering line we kind of lose it a little bit. And so it's interesting that when he's like talking about you want to kill me, I want that too, the tonal landscape is suddenly shifting to something that's a little more
stable, solid,
and stable. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that does. Yeah, like it's almost like his message is coming into focus there, like subconsciously getting us to pay more attention or something. Cool. Okay, let's continue.
Empress, we will be one.
Okay.
Those thrusters are hot. How we doing?
This is the Exegol space battle.
Take out that nav tower. All the hatches are blast-proof. All right, BB-8.
That's Jannah.
I'm coming in.
Obviously, it's a lot of shooting. Like the space battle and the I guess surface of Exegol battle, they're obviously a lot more active in a way that you would consider like action movies to be active in their sound. So like cutting between them is definitely like a very obvious contrast.
Yeah, that's how I kind of separated my notes in terms of like separating up the minutes.
Two
it was really kind of, Yeah. And also like, it's really interesting in this particular battle that I don't know if it's ever actually really happened in Star Wars before, where we're kind of getting the ship blasters and like the handheld blaster noises at the same time. And like, you're hearing like the handheld guns and you're also hearing like the engines of the planes flying around. And it's like this really cool contrast where you can actually kind of contrast how the sounds are similar and different, which is really, I don't think it's happened really before.
That's very true. Yeah, because we're hearing the ground battle and the... Yeah, okay. Now I'm curious what the differences are. Okay, let's listen a little bit. Can you tell which ones are which?
A little bit, like some of them are very similar, but like I feel like unless it's that one moment where like Jan is actually doing the shooting, the kind of the handheld ones are a lot quieter, generally speaking, and then the ship ones are louder, which makes sense because the ships are bigger, carry more power, I guess. And then you can also hear like the really loud, kind of like the surface guns of the Star Destroyer as well. So it's like kind of variance in level of sound that helps distinguish the different types of blaster shots.
Yes. There's also like some of them have a longer, like some of them last longer. Like you can really hear the like missile. I don't really know like war terminology. Sorry. You can hear like the whistle, the missile, like you can hear it traveling through like more space. It's like,
yep.
Instead of hitting something so quickly, which I think would be the quicker one would I think be implied. I think would be like the ground level thing stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, there was my military. So okay, keep listening. Oh, I guess to provide some context. So I know everyone's seen the movie, but if you get confused about battles like I do, there is the space battle happening, which like Poe is kind of in charge of. And then there is also like the on the surface of Exegol thing happening. And that's with like Finn and Jannah and BB-8. And when they start riding the horse, the not Fathiers, and they're like trying to take out like, you know, like the towers and whatever. Like they're trying to basically attack this from multiple angles. So that's why the team is a little bit split up here. And yeah, that's what's happening. And then of course we have Rey doing her Force type stuff. So to me, this reminds me of in many Star Wars films, it's where there's multiple kind of threads happening at the same time. They're kind of all, so in The Last Jedi, it would be like, we have like the Holdo maneuver happening while like the Captain Phasma Finn confrontation is happening, while we have, what's the other thing that's happening? While we have Rey and Ren doing the throne room thing. So here we have yet another throne situation. And then we have like other final order stuff happening. It's space, one on ground, and one Jedi stuff. Yeah. It's a formula that works.
For sure. I mean, the number of Star Wars films that have minimum 2, if not, 3 different things happening in the final like third of the movie. It's a lot of them. Yeah. Probably most notably Phantom Menace, definitely.
Oh, for sure. Phantom Menace is a big one, but they're also all separated.
Yeah. I mean, Revenge of the Sith, too, you have the 2 big battles going on between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then Yoda and the Emperor that are constantly being cut between them. Return of the Jedi has the stuff on the Death Star, the stuff surrounding the Death Star, and then the stuff on Endor. So, like, it's definitely a formula that Star Wars comes back to a lot.
Yeah, I think
for the ends of films.
Yes. I'm thinking notably Empire Strikes Back doesn't seem to do that.
No.
But also, yeah, I feel like the Empire Strikes Back ends together, where the middle is apart. Yeah, and this one this one is like together sooner in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Which is I'm trying to think if this is like an outlier in that regard. Here, I feel like they they're together and then they're apart for this, and then they don't come together again until the very end when they're hugging. Basically.
The very end, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
Because they're really kind of together for like the first, half maybe of the film, and then it
seems that way.
When they go to the other moon of Endor, that Rey kind of gets separated from Finn and Poe, and then the battle, Finn and Poe get separated.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's continue listening. So Jannah, you could hear that detonation device or that little beep. Mm-hmm. So Jannah is shooting in the air with the crossbow. she throws explosives into a manhole, and it causes an explosion that takes out the navigation signal temporarily. So that is what's happening there. It is very like, it's interesting how there's like always someone there's always someone who has to like tamper with either the communication or the shields or like something, which is like not doing the actual thing, but it's like doing a step that makes the actual thing easier. Yeah. It's a valuable job. So it's,
yeah. And the music there's also just so Williams, like, so, it's just quintessential Williams action scoring too. This whole sequence. There's the typical Williams ostinato rhythmic figure constantly going around in the background, and then, you know, a big theme. In this case, it's Frank calls it the Finn and Jannah at war set piece theme.
You called Frank Finn.
Oh, did I? I was reading my notes.
That's
Sorry, Frank. But so it's the Finn and Jannah at war set piece theme.
Yeah.
That he then keeps kind of transposing up, and it's a theme that kind of has an overall ascending trajectory anyway. So like as Finn and Jannah are kind of desperately trying to get rid of the signal, tension's rising, and therefore the music also rises with it.
Yeah. You mean like harmonically speaking?
Yeah, and also just like contour wise, like melodically. It's just kind of reaching ever upward as the tension also reaches ever upward, I guess. I don't know.
No, you're right. Yeah. I'm going to put a screenshot. Screenshots don't look they don't look the best. It's kind of grainy, but if you just look on the catalog, it's, you know, in the set piece theme section. So this would be Finn and Jannah at war, and that chord right there is so John Williams in that chord just like sets off my like Phantom Menace meter radar. It like does this one. Oh my God. So this is what you mean by like it keeps rising. And then like that. It's like that diminished, it's super John Williamsy. Super John Williams.
So John Williamsy.
Yeah, and then let's see. It's so grainy to read. Okay, A minor with C on the bottom. Okay, D minor with F sharp. Sorry, I should have practiced this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's basically it. Okay. Yeah. Finn and Jannah at war. Yeah. And yeah, this is a set piece theme, and it won't be listed like as a leitmotif, but a set piece theme is generally something that, well, it accompanies like a set piece in the film. Like think of like the Battle of Hoth, or like the Fathiers in what's it called, The Last Jedi, where it's like you don't really hear the Fathiers music again, but like the Fathiers music accompanies that specific scene, and it is like a very complete piece of music for that set piece.
For sure. I was like, when I was kind of taking notes initially, I was like, that has to be a theme. Like it's so big and like in your face. I'm like, where is it? And then it was like, wait a minute, set piece themes. Check there.
Yeah, that's always like the place to check second. You're like, wait, this sounds too themey to not be a theme. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then immediately after the Finn and Jannah little theme, there's something that's even more Williamsy for action cues. Is there's this little staccato wind figure over this like string ostinato and like this brass like slower lyrical line. That's just like so quintessential of Williams's action scoring where he's not using a theme. So
yes,
the whole sequence is just like Williams central for how he composes action music, really.
Let's listen to it on the soundtrack for better audibility without the shooting. So this is Finn and Jannah at war. So we're still Finn and Jannah. So this is what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like the offbeat, like, yeah, for sure. And
Yep.
I think that reminds me of what came earlier, which is here, the low brass. It's like movement that doesn't have beat one, I guess. It's like, I mean, he does it in the Imperial March. That's something different. But, I mean, it's related, but it's a theme. So, yeah, that is very, okay, so let's break down why that is very Williamsy. First of all, I guess it's having just the sound of the piccolo, I don't know, the sound of the piccolo doing short, bitey things. But why don't you explain to me why that sounds Williamsy to you?
I mean, just having played a lot of Williams on piccolo and also flute, which is generally kind of, they're often doubled, not all the time, but often. He does it all over the place. Like the throne room, like you said, Imperial March, like there's always this like offbeat woodwind stuff happening everywhere. And so it's just like kind of it's a way, I think, for him to create a little bit of energy in the scene. And also because he's using these higher register instruments, it's a little easier for him to get the sound to kind of cut through the sound effects that are happening of the battle. And he does this like also in like Indiana Jones and like the scene with the motorcycle. He does it anywhere where there's loud sound effects, really. And he wants the music to kind of cut through and still create this like fast-paced rhythmic propulsion. He uses the upper winds in a very particular manner.
Yeah, and also and he loves to double it with the xylophone.
Yes.
For even more
That too.
for even more of the cutting through the sound. Mm-hmm. And it's very effective because it's not just that the piccolo is high pitched, because you could do it on violin, but the violin would be a little bit too lengthy, I think. Like it's not quite as, the timbre isn't quite as cutting. Like the flute and piccolo has, like if you look at a spectrogram, it has a much more pure, like fundamental tone, where a violin, even if it's high pitched, would have like such an overtone splash. Like it's a lot more like complicated of a tone, so it doesn't really cut through as well. But here, pairing it with the xylophone, which like the two of those, like they really blend well together in this context. Oh, yeah. The xylophone gives it like an extra punch where it almost is, I mean, unless you have like a detailed ear, you might not even pick up that it's both instruments. You might pick up on one or the other because they blend so well, but the xylophone just seems to give the piccolo sound an extra punch where you might think it's coming attack from the piccolo. Yeah.
There's only so much you can do with your tongue.
Exactly.
That it helps to have like someone actually literally hitting something to kind of make that attack much more clear.
Totally, which is like, it's also kind of a technique if you have to use strings for something like that. Like you might double like a string staccato with, like you might also overdub like pizzicato or something, just to make sure it's it sounds more rhythmic and cutting. let's see. Like, I wonder if there's also an element of like, it's filling in dead beat space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the low brass is it's hitting, and then the piccolo is happening
kind of
after.
Offset from each other, yeah.
Yeah. That's the type of thing if I'm lazy and I'm not writing music out, but I want to just do like, I'll frequently like record myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to improvise the layers, because I can kind of basically hear what layers to add. It never 100% works out, because I'll have the same tendency to do things on the same beat. And then it's like, I have to consciously be like, no, fill in a different beat. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Williams doesn't have that problem.
No, he does not. But
There's always something going on.
Exactly. And it's also like, he, as the composer, this is why you have a composer do this, rather than just having a bunch of players who are really good at their instrument wing it. Like, you can't wing something like this. Like,
no.
Yeah, this is a very coordinated affair. Okay.
As Williams will openly admit, that's why he loves concert arrangements of things. It's because you can actually hear the intricacies of what's happening in the orchestra, whereas like when it's in the film, you can't always hear that. He seems to mention that.
He says that at every concert.
At concerts. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. We've
Anytime
both been
anytime
they're doing motorcycle for X-Wings.
Asteroid field, motorcycle for motorcycle, like anything like that. He's like, you can actually hear the orchestra.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, okay. We've both seen John Williams live at least a couple times. You've seen him more times than me. And he, like, for example, the way that he introduces scherzo for for motorcycle and orchestra, but then keep in mind, he also has scherzo for X-Wing. And is it just called? Yes.
I think it's just scherzo for X-Wings,
yeah. So kind of, you can apply what I'm saying to that too. But for scherzo for motorcycle and orchestra, which is from Indiana Jones, he like always tells this story about like how basically I don't remember the exact delivery of his story. Maybe you do, but how it is like how now it's going to be like scherzo for motorcycle and orchestra, but without the motorcycle. Like, he always mentions that like you couldn't really hear, like, he wrote this thing and you couldn't really hear it because all the motorcycles and everything. So he gleefully is like, and now you're going to hear it without the motorcycles.
Yeah. I just saw him Saturday at Tanglewood, and they did Asteroid Field, and he was like, you put all this time into creating this score, so you can imagine how bruising it is on a composer's ego when you get to the film and you can't hear it.
That's so funny. Okay, because for Empire Strikes Back season, we talked about the Asteroid Field concert arrangements, didn't we?
Yep.
And now I need to know, like, what tempo did he take it at, like, relative to the film and other concert arrangements?
It was pretty close to the film, actually.
Okay.
Like, it was, I think, probably the closest I've heard in terms of tempo to what's in the film.
Yeah. Yeah. So faster than like the main recording.
Yeah.
Interesting.
A lot of other stuff was slower than the recording when he was conducting it on Saturday. So I was like, the big one was Anakin's theme. The very end of the Anakin theme concert arrangement. He took it at...
Okay. Oh, I want to.
Yeah, and I was like, he took the very end so slowly that I was like, wait, is this a new arrangement? Like, I don't remember this. There's also a section in the middle. I don't think it was because he was taking it, like, the rest of it was fine tempo wise. So I don't think it was that. So I think it might have actually been a new arrangement of Anakin's theme, because there's this middle bit that I was like, okay, either he took a weird cut there, or it's just a new arrangement, or the orchestra messed up. Like, I don't know what's going on. But there was like something there too. But Asteroid Field was pretty close to film tempo. Which was quite impressive.
It's a big venue, Tanglewood, right? Like the bowl,
yes,
like a bowl situation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, he took some things a little bit slower at the Hollywood Bowl too, and some of it felt like he was like just really feeling it there. But some of it, I was also like, having played an orchestra, I do know that it is not uncommon to take some things slower when you're in a huge venue, just because the time
or like a really echoey venue. Because in undergrad, we would often for orchestra perform in the chapel, which is not great for orchestras.
No.
At all. And we did the Star Wars suite. And I was playing principal flute. And I was so glad we were performing it there, because that meant the Imperial March was painfully slow and I could actually get the triple tonguing.
Nice.
But like, yeah, there's definitely, you'd have to take the acoustics of the venue into account. And Tanglewood's really unique too, where they figured it out so that the sound delay from the back of the lawn, they have not the recording, but like they're projecting additional sound through speakers to the back of the lawn, because you're so far away, like you're not going to be able to hear the orchestra.
Oh, of course, yeah.
From the stage. And so they have it figured out exactly what the delay is, and then how much the sound has to be delayed so that the sound from the speakers is hitting you at the same time as the sound from the stage.
That's really smart.
Which is really interesting. Although
it's trippy
Saturday night,
watching the stage,
it was a little bit off. I was in the back of the shed, and there was this weird echo anytime there was snare drum, that you could hear the speakers coming back from the back of the lawn. And I was like, okay, this is not usually what happens at Tanglewood. So they were slightly off on their calculations for
so speakers
whatever weather
early?
Was happening, but they were slightly behind.
Oh, okay.
From what was coming from the stage.
That could just be the nature of different instruments projecting differently.
Yeah,
snare drum, I imagine, would hit you faster.
Yeah, I mean, it was only when the snare drum was going that I noticed it.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's definitely like crazy, the calculations that go into figuring out how fast to take something.
Oh yeah, live music, like doing sound for like a live concert is absolutely no joke. So much goes into it that people take for granted. So much goes into it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shout out to sound engineers, front of house.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll continue playing.
The ground cannons have stopped. They're resetting their systems.
So?
I gotta go do something.
I'm staying with you.
Oh, March of the Resistance, should point out.
Still no Falcon or backup.
I don't know where to. Maybe nobody else is coming.
What do we do, General?
We gotta hit them ourselves.
What can we do against these things? Just stay alive!
The time.
Now, of course, we can tell from the lightning that we're now back on Exegol.
Yeah. That March of the Resistance version is so cool. Like, I like it. I love it. It's so cool because it's not as marchy as it often is, because it's more kind of stretched. Like, it still has this strong rhythmic profile, both melodically and especially like the accompaniment, but like it's just so stretched from what it normally is that it doesn't have the same, like, it's not the same march quality that it has like in the concert arrangement or in like Force Awakens when the X-Wings come on Takodana or anything. So like it's this like really interesting kind of slightly different take on the theme that we all know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's also like, I'm thinking of the part where like they're at the Resistance in camp, all getting ready, where we hear we have March of the Resistance, and there it is also very marchy. Like it's very like we're going into battle or whatever. And here it is more drawn out. Okay, so let's listen to that on the soundtrack. So this corresponds to 328. Okay. Of approaching the throne. Okay, we'll lead into it a little bit. Yeah, already. Like a little triplet stretching out there.
Yep.
Where usually it would be like... Yeah, usually it would be...
Yeah, there's also like, I think part of it is there's a lot less space between notes, where it's like it's played much more legato here, whereas like in other more marchy versions, you can hear like just even the slightest amount of space between the notes that kind of gives this a bit more like kind of march-like quality to it.
Yeah, okay. Let's now let's hear March of the Resistance. Okay, just a second. Like as it appears, you know, proper, like not proper, but like the first time. The you know, the standard version. There's definitely a lot more space between notes. Especially D D D D D D.
Yeah,
That little space there. Yeah, it definitely is very different here. Why do you think that is? Or what effect do you think it has on the scene for you?
I mean, I think the reason why is probably just to kind of fit tempo-wise with what's going on around it, so it's not like this kind of abrupt tempo change in the middle of the cue. But I think it's, I don't know, like in terms of the effect that it has, it kind of, you know, it's not this army going into battle at this point. It's, you know, Finn being like, no, I need to stay here. I need to destroy this Star Destroyer so that they don't get the signal back. So it's kind of more of an individual resistance hero kind of acting rather than like the resistance as a whole, which is where we get a lot more of the like marchy variants, like in the earlier scene when they're preparing to go to Exegol, in Force Awakens when the X-Wings arrive. Those are all kind of group efforts, whereas here it's kind of, I feel like, kind of signifying Finn doing this, not on his own, because he has Jannah, obviously, but kind of the more individualistic version of it.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too, where the full March of the Resistance, when it's all marchy, it conveys more of a sense of we are unified, we're kind of in control right now, like we kind of have our shit together. And again, like what you said, like we're unified, like let's go, we're a team. And here is more like individuals can be heroes of the Resistance too, but it's
for sure,
like it is a more personal, a more aspirational almost. It's like, yeah, it's operating more on a smaller level rather than like, okay, now we're all ready. Yeah, let's.
And I feel like also like it's kind of like the musical equivalent of like the slow motion action shot, where it's like when you get those, oftentimes it's when a character is very determined to do something. And so like kind of Finn here is definitely, he's like, no, I'm doing this. And so he's very determined. And so then you get kind of, instead of getting, you know, a slow motion action shot of him going to the gun and like shooting the bridge, you get the slow theme instead. So it kind of
I see what you're saying.
Gives this extra weight to it in a way, I guess.
Yeah. It also, I mean, for me, it helps like highlight what's going on screen, because so much is happening. It sort of highlights it as, okay, this is a moment to pay attention to, or like this is more significant, or like even if they aren't all united in this effort, this is, Finn definitely has an idea right now and is definitely going for something. Yeah, let's hear that part again.
Navigation signal. Minutes away, sir.
Then let's go! No, wait, listen. The Crown Cannons have stopped. They're resetting their systems.
So?
I gotta go do something.
I'm staying with you!
Still no Falconer backup.
You know, it also kind of serves as a backdrop for all of the resistance action going on here, because it's not very organized at the moment, but it's like there still is I mean, it functions in many ways. It definitely,
Yeah, for sure.
it wouldn't seem as appropriate if it were the regimented march for sure. Nor would it leave, much space for the dialogue.
Yeah, and there's there's still like this kind of marchy quality to it with the accompaniment, especially with kind of these like rhythmic, not full ostinatos, but repeated rhythmic patterns, which I guess is an ostinato, but like these repeated rhythmic bits. And at first, I think it's like the low strings, and then later the timpani that kind of keep it going and keep the energy up in the scene.
Yeah. Do you mean the do 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 do? Do you mean like
no, the stuff happening under it?
Oh, okay.
Which is harder to hear in the actual film itself, but like there's this like kind of, I think, low strings. Maybe hold on, let me check my notes. Yeah, and Rins are also kind of doing this rhythmic thing under the march itself, and then at the end, it's low brass timpani.
Okay, let's hear.
I think
it's doing that offbeat thing. I love when the timpani comes in. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's doing that thing that the piccolo was doing, and the other, where it's the offbeat filling in. Yeah.
And little sidebar: timpanist is Williams's brother. Yeah, Don Williams. There's actually. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up. I have it somewhere. I found a picture of him.
Oh, I have no idea what he looks
like. In the recording session. And I'm doing it just because of the, let's see. No, I want this one. Come on. Are you seeing this at all? I have no idea what I'm doing.
Oh, are you sharing your screen? Or are you sending it to me? Oh, okay. Just a second. I will allow that to happen. Wait, tell me why do you have a picture of him at a recording session?
I just found it when I was trying to find an interview of him that I remembered.
Nice. Oh, wait, are you still there? Okay, you're here. Yeah. Okay, great. So I showed the picture on screen, and it's from an interview?
Yeah, so that was actually it was on a percussion Facebook page or something. So yeah, it's Williams with his 9 timpani, I think. So Don Williams with his 9 timpani, which...
Oh my God, 9 of them.
Which is actually pretty common for a film score. There's also a photo of him. I can send it to you afterwards of, because Don Williams also played on Rogue One. And he had 8 or 9 timpani there too. But what it is for is so that there's not they don't have to keep retaking things, because you can hear the pedals retuning.
During,
because of where the mics are placed. So this makes it so that within a scene you don't have to retune the timpani. But yeah, I just found that photo and I was like, okay, this is a crazy amount of timpani. And it's really also really cool to see him as in that recording space with, I don't know if you can actually see with John Williams from that view, but yeah. And I found it because I was looking up this interview, because I remember very specifically in the summer before Rise of Skywalker came out, there was an interview with Don Williams 4 days into the recording sessions for the film, where he was spilling the beans on the film a little bit. That's when people were able to start guessing about how long the movie was going to be, because he said that John was writing 135 minutes of music for the film.
That's right. I did see that. He said that.
He also got us all excited about Duel of the Fates being in the film, because he was mentioning all these themes that were in the film. And, he said the Phantom as the theme, which, is presumably, yes, there we are. There's Don Williams at a recording session with his 9 timpani. But he said the Phantom, so we presumed it was Duel of the Fates.
Yeah. Maybe he just meant Palpatine.
Yeah, I don't know. But I have some great quotes from this interview, because I ended up finding it.
Oh, do share.
So he was talking about like kind of how he uses themes in the film.
So Don was talking about how John uses
yes,
themes. Okay.
Yes, and how like some of them are hidden, which is true. And he said you'll be sitting there watching the film go by, and oh, there's 2 bars of it, and it grabs you and takes you away. And then he added, I find that happening a lot with this while I'm playing, which takes me away from what I'm supposed to be doing, which is counting and coming in at the right place. So he also made a comment about how Williams keeps seeming to write harder and harder parts for the timpani when he knows Don is playing. And so he said, I'm fine with it, but, you know, did I do something as a kid that I don't know about? So it's kind of nice to see that like kind of brotherly relationship between the two of them as they're recording the music together.
That is really
so every
funny.
time I hear timpani in this score, I'm just like thinking about
it's like a brother moment.
There's his brother. And like I'm assuming
hilarious.
Williams knew in advance that Don was going to be playing, because I can't remember if he played on any of the other sequel films. I feel like he might have done Last Jedi. But,
I think he did do Last Jedi, because the part where John Williams is playing the piano in Last Jedi for The Long Goodbye.
Yes.
There's like a timpani crash, and it's like that's like a duet between the 2 brothers, technically, from a certain point of view.
Yeah. So
that is great.
A nice little kind of fun fact of the fact that it's Williams's brother on the timpani.
It's a very fun fact, in fact.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep listening.
Yes.
I think I'm jumping back into the right spot.
I'm staying with you.
Still no Falconer backup.
I don't know where to. Maybe nobody else is coming.
What do we do, General?
We gotta hit them ourselves.
What can we do against these things?
Just stay alive!
Okay, Sith Auditorium.
The time has come.
And this is why they got the LA Master Chorale.
With your hatred, you will take my life, and you will ascend.
Yeah, so the LA Master Chorale, conducted by Grant Gershon, was hired for this film. And that is them. That is them singing, you know, the approaching the throne stuff. I'm pretty sure they also did the Sith Whispers. I need to confirm that.
That would make sense.
Yeah, like who else? A group of people with voices. That would make sense.
I mean, I suppose like the musicians could do it too in theory, but it would make sense for it to be the chorus.
Yeah, I mean,
they
what
have
are they
them
gonna
there
do?
anyway.
Like the violinist will like go up to the closest mic and they'll just be like
Just start whispering into it.
yeah. Yeah.
Like the one, I mean, there were obviously other musical moments that stuck out to me when I first saw it in theaters, but that was the biggest moment, both musically and just like in the whole film, that like really stuck with me on that first viewing in the movie theater on opening night, was just that big choral entrance. Yeah.
In a positive way?
Cool. Yeah.
It
was really like that, and like the little woodwind version of the Emperor's theme when Rey's like, I'm gonna kill Palpatine. Like those were the 2 musical moments that like I remembered distinctly on that first watching.
I can't remember what I thought about the choir there, my first watching, but I'm sure it did stand out to me in a positive way. I mean, they held off on it until this moment and it might have happened already a little bit. I'm recording a little bit out of order, but they definitely withhold it until this Exegol Sith Auditorium, like this section of the film. And it is very like ethereal sounding, but in not in a like heavenly way. Like first of all, I don't know if it sounds wordless, even if it's not. The words are kind of indistinguishable, and it's like fortissimo. at this point.
Yeah.
Like they just come out like subito fortissimo.
They come out of nowhere, really. Like there's this little crescendo in the orchestra, but then you expect it to go to like, maybe a big version, orchestral version of like Anthem of Evil or something like that. But instead it goes to this big out of nowhere choral moment.
Yeah, and I
think there is like actually a brass chord in like the first half of it that is still there. But like other than that, it's like, you don't really hear that unless you're really like listening to it intently like I was doing yesterday. But yeah, it's just this big, powerful moment that is, I mean, when I first saw this film, I was like, oh, cool, was that diegetic? And then
that's what I was going to say. It kind of toes that line between like...
Yeah, it's like, is it diegetic? Is it not diegetic? Like,
yeah,
kind of, it's on that boundary for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, is it the disciples? Is that part of the chant or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think if I had to pick, I would say it is non-diegetic, but I would say that it is a non-diegetic like representation of the fact that now all the Sith are like, it evoke like, okay, normally when you hear like a piece of score, you're not thinking like, oh, those flutes are those horses or those that is that. But here it's like, it feels like, okay, there are other presences now here. And the Sith whispers, I feel like, are diegetic. Mm-hmm. And then...
I think those are definitely diegetic.
Yeah. And so, like, the vocals are almost like, now the heightened version of this, of that or something.
Yeah, because, like, I think on the initial watching, I thought it was diegetic. And then when I went and saw it again, for the only other time I saw it in theaters, I realized that like all of the chanting and stuff is much lower in register. It's mostly male voices, it seems. And so I was like, okay, so there are definitely sopranos in that big choral moment. So it's probably not diegetic if that isn't present in the other places that we can assume are diegetic.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's hear it without the sound effects. They definitely have words.
Yes.
But they're just staying on a B minor chord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And then, I mean, they enter and they kind of just say a little bit before Palpatine gives his, it's just his entrance. It's just like the entrance music. Mm-hmm. That's it. Because then he's like, with your hatred, like it's out, music is in at 2:07, it's out at 2:16. And then like it comes back, but like, that's it. It's setting the stage for Palpatine, who is,
and it also fades out a lot quicker in the film than it does in the soundtrack itself. Yes. As well. So
yeah, totally.
Yep.
With your hatred, you will take my life.
Yeah. And it's also, I can't really tell, but like the sound in the background of that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're hearing everyone kneel at the same time, which creates kind of whoosh of sound. But like after that, I had a moment when I was listening to it incessantly yesterday where it's like, is that a Palpatine laugh I'm hearing in the background? Like,
oh, interesting.
What's going on? Like, I was hearing something. Like, there's definitely like the thunder and the lightning, but there's something that was very reminiscent of Palpatine laughing, and I don't know if it was actually there or not, or if I was just imagining it. But yeah, the sound design is definitely very interesting.
Do you mean during the singing or after it?
Like as they're fading out.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
With your hatred,
oh, it's like a
like Yeah, it's like very, very faint. And I'm like,
it sounds like him. It does sound like him.
right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's very, yeah. I mean, he is like relishing in this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm also like kind of wondering if it's like part of like, all the Sith live in him at this point. So like, he's not like, is he the same Palpatine that died at the end of Return of the Jedi? Is he a clone? And then that Palpatine is living in him. So you're kind of hearing like maybe the voices of the past Sith kind of echoing I don't know. But
yeah, those are good questions. I mean,
but
he does feel like he obviously, I mean, he seems different, but he seems the same.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say.
They don't really go into that.
Yeah, exactly.
All they go into is that it's the dark side. It's pathway to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural, and that's all we get of any indication of whether or not he's the same Palpatine or not.
Yeah. I've read like some Legends books that deal with this kind of thing, like like Darth Plagueis, and then like the Darth Bane trilogy and stuff, like basically his Sith masters and the ones that came before him, his Sith predecessors. And at least according to Legends, Palpatine, first of all, Sith, they had been trying to figure out how to transfer their life essence for quite some time, and none of them had really succeeded, though different ones like Darth Bane or whatever, like made progress on the way, and they were passing their, like, it does really fit in with what Sidious was saying in like Revenge of the Sith. Like it seems like there was like progress being made on that front, being passed on to the next person, but of course every Sith would would end up killing their master, and the master would always try to try to become their apprentice, would try to transfer themselves into their apprentice, but never really worked out. And Plagueis was really trying to do that too, but then Palpatine killed his master, before he could do that. And it seems like Sidious is like perhaps the first one that he perhaps came the closest.
May have come close. Yeah, for sure.
Not today, Palpatine. Okay, let's continue.
My life, and you will ascend.
All you want is for me to hate, but I won't. Not even you.
Weak, like your parents.
My parents were strong. They saved me from you.
Your master, Luke Skywalker, was saved by his father. The only family you have here is me.
Ugh, that's not good.
Yeah. Is it just me, or is like Palpatine's voice more echoey at this point than at the beginning of this 5 minutes? And then Rey's like even more so echoey. Like
Rey is Rey's very echoey, and she's also speaking very softly. So it's he seems more grumbly here, like definitely. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. He seems, I don't know if he's more echoey but he's definitely more something.
I'm wondering if he's like kind of not like, this is kind of after he's brought the disciples in. So I'm wondering if it maybe has something, at least on the Palpatine side, to do with that. Like he's changed his vocal performance because he's playing to an audience more now than just like having a conversation, speaking at Rey. I don't know.
I think
he's definitely, there's something different about his voice at this point.
No, you're right. There definitely is. And maybe it is the fact that he has a bigger audience, or that he's channeling something like the others. What it sounds like to me is like very big payoff for very little effort. And I don't know.
Yes.
All you want is for me to hate, but I won't. Not even you.
Weak, like your parents.
My parents were...
Okay, it also sounds to me almost like Rey's voice when she's having like visions with Kylo Ren, where it's like,
yeah,
it's echoey to the point of where I think it's almost transcending reality, like it's transcending a physical space. And so the opposite might be true, where maybe Palpatine is less speaking to the audience, and maybe this is like Rey and Sidious are really dialing in on each other here.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. Because, like, this is the first time that they're, at least in this 5 minutes, that they're really having a conversation where Rey is participating instead of Palpatine just kind of
talking at her,
monologuing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then this tender music enters.
Strong. They saved me from you.
Your master, Luke Skywalker, was saved by his father. The only family you have here is me.
So here he's opening the hatch.
Yeah.
More choir.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
So there's a moment, like, right before the hatch opens, like, as Palpatine's kind of finishing talking. And there's this, like, brass bit. And I've been going back and forth on this since yesterday. Is it hinting at the Psalm of the Sith?
Before the hatch opens?
Right before the hatch opens, yeah. There's, like, this brass line.
Let's listen to it without the sound effects. So this is the, Rey. My parents were strong. They saved me. Dee dee dee. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dee. I hear that for sure. I mean,
like, it's definitely not the full theme or anything, but it definitely hints at it. And it seems to be more, because, like, it enters in one instrument and then, like, immediately followed by another. And it seems like echoed. The second one is, like, the kind of the third and fourth measures of the theme, more so than the first two, because it kind of does this descending motion, I guess. I don't know.
Still before this. Dee, dee, dee. So. Dee, dee, dee. Something like that. And then it continues. Dee. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely different, like, pitch classes, which would point to them perhaps being different parts of the theme.
Yeah. I don't know.
That
it's just
is, yeah, no.
I know that I'm not crazy, because I was like, wait a minute, is that like what it is that actually there? Or I'm just cool.
I'm gonna say yes. I
mean, it kind of goes back to what Don Williams was saying about, like, things being hidden, like themes being hidden oftentimes in this film. So it's just this little hidden reference to the Psalm of the Sith.
Yeah, I am going to go with that. Given Don Williams's comment, especially, I'm going to read into it more because of Don Williams's comment. And so, Psalm of the Sith, I'm sure a few people need reminder at this point, but just in case, well, it's the theme for this podcast season. So, it's the music you hear at the beginning of the episode. But the part that we hear in that low brass would be like, well, first I'll just play this. That would be this part. That's being hinted at. Except, just, transposed a little bit. Yeah. Because then it goes. I heard it. I'll validate you.
Cool.
Okay. Great.
I will say that the new intro music might be my favorite of all the scenes so far.
Thank you. It's definitely very fun. It's
very fun.
Yes, I used an octave pedal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, if ever there is a time to use an octave pedal, it's basically doing the equivalent to my violin that they're doing with Palpatine's voice here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just beef it up, like 100%. Okay, let us continue. So the tender music comes in, and it's not on the soundtrack, but it's on the For Your Consideration soundtrack on a track called Parents. So, yeah, which to me says that maybe it was written later than the rest of the soundtrack. Perhaps.
Who knows? It definitely is poignant, though. Like, it adds this kind of emotional, dramatic weight to, Rey going from my parents are nobodies to, like, defending them in this film.
Yes, and the music seems out of place here considering their setting, but I think it illustrates Rey's clarity of mind, because it's like Rey's able to conjure, she's able to be steadfast and still like pure or whatever, even despite like being in this like whole Sith auditorium, despite like this whole situation. It's like a very, I don't know, it speaks to her strength really, and just how like she's not lost at this point right now. She's not sucked in. Yeah.
Your master, Luke Skywalker, was saved by his father. The only family you have here
Lightning.
is me.
And he's trying, but... So he's raising the stakes now. Oh, I just heard another one. Okay, so 3 times now I'm going to say Psalm of the Sith is definitely being hinted at. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. Timpani. Interesting that it sounds like it sounds more choral there. Like, I mean, it sounds more hymn, like a hymn or song.
Yeah.
Like it sounds just the way that like the voice. There's, voice movement. Like religious almost there.
Yeah. This was another moment I think I got excited about.
When they opened the hatch.
Was the dramatic choral bit.
Basically all the dramatic choral bits you're a fan of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a choral bit in a Star Wars that I have not been a big fan of. It's just, I'm always a fan of it.
The one at the end of Return of the Jedi, when Luke is fighting Vader and all on the Death Star. It's just the male chorus. But like, I remember my sister and I had this console of some sort. It was like this big.
A console?
We had,
like a video game console?
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Okay.
But we had this thing that we played in it. And it was basically like 3PO and R2 narrating this saga. But it wasn't the Lego, like the Droid Tales. It was like the actual thing. And you could only like go backwards and forwards by a certain amount on that thing. And my sister and I were obsessed with this like little choral bit in Return of the Jedi. So we would keep pressing the back button as soon as it was over so we could hear it again. And every time it would go back to the first scene with Yoda.
Oh my goodness.
We heard that so many times just so that we could hear a little bit from Return of the Jedi.
Oh my gosh. That's cool. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't even know what it
about,
was.
But
like, I can't remember what it was anymore. But like, my sister and I both have very distinct memories of seeing that Yoda scene a million times, just so that we can listen to that choral bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that part. Yeah, it's so great. Okay,
yeah, he definitely knows how to make good use of a chorus.
Yeah, and like bring them out at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still think the weirdest instance is at Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, where it's there for like half a second.
Yeah.
It's like, look, chorus, they're gone.
I
will say,
it's
though,
also
like,
like one
it
of my
adds a
favorite
lot.
parts. Yeah, no, I love it. And it's also like,
because I saw it at Tanglewood Live to Picture last summer.
Cool.
And obviously they didn't have a chorus for like 5 seconds of music. So it just didn't have the choral part. And it definitely, it definitely lacked without the chorus. And like, you couldn't have just like thrown a little synthesizer chorus in there or something.
Oh
like,
man, that is kind of sad.
That would have been better than nothing.
Oh wow, the chorus in Cloud City is so distinct. And I'm also very curious what a choir how they would do it live, because it sounds like such an 80s or 70s type of sci-fi choir to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Okay, so I'll continue here. So, okay.
They don't have long. No one is coming to help them. And you are the one who led them here. Strike me down. Take the throne. Reign over the new empire.
What does this remind you of?
It reminds me of the Immolation scene.
Yeah, me too.
From Revenge of the Sith.
100%. Yeah, me too.
Like, it's just like, I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but just like the feeling of it and like those suspensions and the dissonance and the very heavy string texture here, obviously augmented by the choir, but like that kind of almost Adagio for strings-esque string texture.
Literally, yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Literally
it's
what
really
my
kind
notes
of
say. Exactly that. Music is kind of Barber, Adagio, and Return to the Sith, Anakin, Immolation, etc.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like that's the closest we really get to any reference to prequel music in much of this film.
Unless, well, would you consider this a reference or just like a similar instinct that he's acting?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm wondering if it was maybe temped with
Immolation?
The Immolation scene. Because just the texture of it is so similar, and oftentimes with temp music, especially with Williams, he sometimes takes harmonies and melodies and stuff, fragments from the temp, but more often than not, he takes orchestration and texture from the temp. And so because this is so texturally similar, I'm kind of wondering if it was maybe the temp track for this section. But that's complete guess. I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what any of the temp music for this particular film was. But the similarities, and it makes me wonder if maybe it was temped.
Same. 100. I'm with you on this. Let's see if I don't remember if it's on the Parents track. I'm sure it is. Okay.
I think it is.
Anthem of Evil for sure. Psalm of the Sith. Suspension. And like one line sustaining while another line moves underneath it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I want to get to that like first big suspension. What's up? Okay, yeah. So, listeners, suspension is like, say like the underlying chord is basically A minor, but like putting a note. Okay, so I'm just playing I'm playing A minor with an B on top, and this would be like a sus 2 to 1 because second scale degree to first scale degree. But it's just like, you know the feeling. It's like it feels like something needs to move somewhere to make the chord complete. And sometimes they resolve it, but sometimes they don't. So sometimes it'll just be like, like, and this is very, it's very much part of Barber's Adagio for strings, which is tempted in so many movies. It's,
Oh my God,
you can hear Barber's, you can either hear you can either directly hear Barber's Adagio for strings in films. I think it's in like a war film. Is it in Black Hawk Down or something? I'm not exactly sure.
It's definitely in a war film.
Yeah. Or it's definitely tracked, or it's temp tracked, or it's definitely just like a thing composers know to evoke. There's a Barber for Adagio for strings moment in Solo: A Star Wars Story for sure. I feel like when L3 is being or dying or whatever. So that is also Platoon. Okay, Platoon. It's in Platoon.
There you go,
Okay. It was played at JFK's funeral. Okay. And again, it's for strings, the Adagio for strings. Adagio means like slow. It's a very slow tempo. And it's an all string piece, and it is, I think the hallmark of it is like very stretched, really long stretched out melodies, like a very thick string texture where things are very legato. It's not, you don't have like spiky moments and staccato moments really. And it climbs higher and higher and higher. Like the strings are playing very up high, and then it like gets to this huge like apex, and then it's like rings out like this huge chord. But as it's climbing, it's like just so fraught with tension and like all these suspensions where you just feel like, there's unresolved stuff. So it's like a very emotional piece, whatever.
There's also a gorgeous choral arrangement that I think Barber himself did of the Adagio for strings as well. So it kind of fits that Williams kind of combines
Doing
the
both.
two.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were going to put it on any other instrument, it would be, I think, good for voices. Because voices and violin, strings and voices have a lot in common. So for sure, this is... Okay. I will say that like you should listen to Barber Adagio for strings if you're not already familiar. I'll put a link in the show notes to like a version of it. But like not a version of it, but like, a recording of it. I will say that like as fraught with tension as this is, like the Barber is more. Like this is more consonant maybe than even the Barber is. So, yeah, definitely recommend. So just for kicks, let's listen to part of the Immolation scene. First of all, we're hearing some tonality similarities. Suspension. It's climbing. So this part, like there's like a movement where it's like, then it like kind of collapses into something else, and it goes like back out. And so I'm hearing that in both. I'm hearing that in here too. Not here, but. Maybe more like here. Okay, I will find it. It's interesting how like the transformations that are happening. I don't know. I forgot what this is called. Like a slide transformation. No, don't pay attention to me. I don't remember my. I don't remember my theory. But like, it also reminds me of Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Dallas. I can't help it.
I can hear it though.
Thank you.
I can definitely hear it.
It's just very evocative, and yeah. Okay, so we've talked about that. Let's continue listening. We haven't even gotten to like Kylo's. We will. We'll get there. I don't even think we're here yet. Oh wait, no. Sorry, I'm playing from the wrong track. I'm like playing from not the minutes. Yeah. My bad.
Take my life, and you will ascend.
All you want is for me to hate Black.
Okay, we've already done that.
Master Luke Skywalker was saved by his
Okay, we'll hear this one more time.
The only family you have here is me. They don't have long. No one is coming to help them. And you are the one who led them here.
It's also similar to Revenge of the Sith with like the muffled background noise. You're kind of hearing the background of something else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Take the throne, reign over the new empire, and the fleet will be yours. Only you have the power to save them. Refuse, and your new family dies.
Okay, we're getting okay. That's the exciting
One
part.
last comment. I'm kind of like wondering if it was maybe tempt, because like in Revenge of the Sith, it's like, you know, really solidifying the Empire as the new ruling power of the galaxy, and then here Palpatine's trying to like get Rey to create a new empire and be Empress. So I'm wondering if like maybe that little Empire connection might be one of the reasons why it might have been
why Immolation might have been tempt. Because Palpatine's trying to do the same thing, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
With Rey that he did with Anakin. Yeah, that actually would, like, thematically make sense. I think it is, like, it's definitely a good hypothesis that it was tempt.
I don't know if it was, actually, because it is, like, melodically quite different, but
texture-wise, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. The vibe of it is similar, though. Like hearing the war going on in the background is, while kind of there's like a more personal, immediate thing, and I guess the guilt trip that Rey's getting right now, just and feeling potentially responsible, which also is like what Palpatine did to Luke too. Like your rebel friend, you know, they'll all will die. Like this is also end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess, yeah. Skywalkers all go through this at some point.
I guess so.
And your new family dies.
Sound familiar, everyone? Okay. If that sounded like Kylo Ren's theme, but different, correct. It is Kylo Ren's theme, but different.
I call it the Good Boy Ben theme.
That it is. It is good boy Ben. It is like, first of all, so many interesting choices were made in the film. Okay. So many choices, interesting choices were made in in how they decided to portray Ben as a redeemed person. First of all, like, I think it was just completely memed, was just like the fact that he's like wearing like a black t-shirt, like he's like just wearing like, I don't know, American Apparel or something. Like suddenly like it's like, of course he ditched the whole like Kylo Ren outfit and mask and everything, but it's not like he got Jedi robes, because how could he have? He just basically took off the armor, and then you see underneath he's just wearing like black jammies. Like he's just wearing like stuff. He's gonna go to sleep. He's gonna go to the gym, just lounge around. He's just wearing like loungewear, and it was just so, I mean, like it did stick. Like it was noticeable to me in the theater, not in a bad way. In fact, I was kind of intrigued. I was like, this is different. I don't hate it, but it is interesting to see him dressed this way. I just thought it was interesting. Like a little alluring, a little bit like, it wasn't, it just made me like not, I don't know. It was kind of, I don't know, watching this film for the first time for me was an exciting time. I was just like, oh, there's so much happening. Oh, a new thing. Like everything with Kylo and Rey also just felt like those two have always been like unpredictable for me to watch, which has made them exciting to watch. Cause I felt this way in The Last Jedi too, where I was like, oh, I did not expect to go here, but here we are. For sure. Okay. I guess I'll continue to, watch with, whatever Palpatine said. Great interest. So yeah, that's one thing. So here, what's happening on screen is Ben Solo has landed, or Ben Solo is, he jumps a big chasm. Like he is basically, he's gonna come back up Rey. He's here. He has arrived, and with his new theme. In Frank Lehman's catalog, it is called Kylo Ren 1.5 Redeemed. And it's called 1.5 just because Kylo Ren has, a few different themes associated with him. And even though this is the last one to show up, it is closest to his first theme. Yeah. Because okay. And then here. It takes it from like, well, I guess I'll let you speak on it first, and then I guess there are multiple ways we can look at this, at this new theme.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what struck me in the theater was that it was so different from what often happens with redeemed Star Wars villains. I mean, Vader, we just get his normal Imperial March. No harmonic change or anything, just changed instrumentally.
So that it sounds like a little sweeter.
Yeah. And then, I mean, another big like villain redemption that I was thinking more about as I was kind of digesting these 5 minutes was Callus in Star Wars Rebels, who does have a big change. I mean, he goes from being relatively high up in the Imperial Security Bureau to becoming Fulcrum spying for the rebellion. And then at the end of season 3, he, ditches the Empire, escapes via escape pod, and the Ghost picks him up. And again, they don't really reharmonize the theme, if I remember correctly. I think they do change a few notes in the theme to kind of make it a little like it ascends more than it descends for the Callus theme. But there's no like major, and then I think it's granted. I just finished season 3 in my Rebels rewatch pre-Ahsoka.
I'm like just about to finish season 3 in my rewatch too.
So I'm not on season 4 yet. So it's been a while since I've seen season 4, but I don't remember really any instances of Callus's theme in season 4 when he is in the rebellion proper and on Yavin 4 with the rebels. So like the last time that I remember us hearing Callus's theme is this kind of slightly changed variant that's, again, not harmonically changed, if I remember correctly. But here we have Williams, who admits himself that this is the first time he's done this. He implies ever, and not just in Star Wars, where he's taken a villain theme and reharmonized it into the major. And it's different from, I know my first episode we talked about kind of reharmonizing the Imperial march for Solo.
For sure, different.
But that's like not a redemption thing. That's, you know, making the Empire seem positive and optimistic and upbeat and like you want to join the Empire.
Yeah, it's propaganda.
Whereas here, it's propaganda. Here it's, you know, really showing a change in character. There's a whole bit on the score featurette of Rise of Skywalker where
about
Williams
the Redeemed theme
talks about this. Yeah. He compares it to like the changes in Rey's theme of it becoming more mature in this film because she's, you know, become a fully fledged hero, adult, Jedi, etc. But then they kind of go in tandem with these changes in Kylo Ren's theme. And let's see, I have the quote here in my notes somewhere. Here it is. So he said, I could turn Ren's theme around, not upside down, but reharmonize it, which was actually JJ's idea. He said, well, you can make the trip from Ren to Ben on the same theme and change the theme to turn it upside down or something. And I think I said, well, no, I've never done that. And how do you do that? But it worked out where his evil theme morphs brilliantly into a kind of hero theme by a change of harmonic support and so on. So it's this typical kind of Williams, you know, somewhat kind of being a bit modest and being like,
like, how do you do that? How do you do that?
How do you do it?
What do you mean? What do you mean, John?
But so it actually came from J.J. Abrams wanting to keep the theme. So I think, well, it kind of implies Williams wanted to write a new theme for Ben Solo. Whereas J.J. Abrams really liked the idea of keeping the theme the same. And he actually, there's a little video in the middle of that quote of Abrams talking to Williams at one point. I don't know if it was the like spotting session or it was during the recording process or something. Because again, the recording process for this film was started in the summer before the film came out. And the last recording session was late November. So
like right before the film came out.
Yeah, it's literally months long process. So this could have been also during a recording session, but it's a little hard to hear what Abrams is saying to Williams. But it sounded like he said something about the idea of like Kylo Ren's trying his hardest to be the best he can be, as opposed to he's trying his hardest to be as bad as he can be, which is like kind of what he's been doing up to this point, trying to be Darth Vader.
Am a villain.
So like it's kind of what he kind of seems to be implying to me in the way he words this is that in both cases he's trying to be either as bad or as good as he can be. And so he wanted to keep the theme the same. Like it's kind of him trying to be something theme. Mm-hmm. And then there's just the bad version and the good version.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
He actually,
for Kylo.
at one point, said something to Williams, said, like, I don't care how you do it, just keep the theme the same. It's kind of...
Yeah, you figure it out. This is your job.
Yeah, you figure it out.
I like that approach because Kylo is a different kind of villain. Like, he's a different kind of antagonist where it's not like a switch flipped in his mind like Anakin to Vader, which was more of a drastic, like, you know, more of a thing. Once Vader was Vader, he wasn't going back really. But Ben has always been like teetering on this thing. Like Ben's existence feels very effortful, like in being whatever he is trying to show the world. Like it takes him a lot of effort. It takes him a lot of effort. He's really still trying to figure out how to be himself.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's being torn apart.
Yes. And so, yeah, I kind of like this theme is almost like another version of him smashing his helmet and then putting it back together. He's like has the same material in him, right? Like it's not like like how, you know, I think we perhaps most of us probably conceived of Sith and Jedi in the originals and the prequels, where it's like, oh, once you turn to the dark side, or like you're either light or you're dark or whatever. Kylo's like messy, and he's been messy since the very beginning. He's been messy since episode 7, and this is another extension of that. Yeah. This is the part that I really remember from watching this film in the theater. I was like, this part really stood out to me, where it was like, oh, I've never heard like this type of thing done. Like, whoa, it's Kylo Ren's theme, but like happier. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Williams says, like, confirms, like, I haven't done this before. So it was definitely new. And when I listened to the For Your Consideration album after seeing the film, I was like, oh, thank God I didn't listen to this before going to see the film, because that definitely would have spoiled the film. And I'm really curious to know, like, were the musicians upset when they were playing this in the recording sessions? And then, you know, you can...
Because of the spoiler?
Easily, yeah, like, it's definitely a musical spoiler. Like, I want to know what it was like to be in that recording session, because I feel like a lot of the time, like, at least from video I've seen of the sequels and the recording of the music for the sequels, the musicians don't have the big screen in the back.
No, they don't. No.
It's Williams has the screen. And then, if anything, musicians have click tracks. But, I mean, at least 4 days into recording, I think Don Williams said they had just over half an hour of music in those 4 days and only used click tracks for about 8 minutes of that.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's mostly, it's often, you know, Williams just kind of doing his own thing. So, like, they obviously weren't seeing the film or hearing the dialogue or anything. But, like, what was it like to be in that recording session playing this music for the first time and being like, I wonder what happens in this film.
I have so wondered about this. And, like, I interviewed 3 session players for The Last Jedi, and 2 of them also did The Rise of Skywalker. But they weren't massive Star Wars nerds. So when I asked, like, if things were spoilers, like, Erica Duke Kirkpatrick, cellist, did say that, like, for sure people were trying to kind of, like, read into things, especially people who knew stuff. But she did remember, and she mentioned this when I talked to her for The Last Jedi, but she remembered that her memory was off and that she meant it for The Rise of Skywalker. So she said, like, there was one point where they got a cue, and I should look at this on the cue sheet now for The Rise of Skywalker, because I don't know if this was actually the name of the cue, but she said there was, like, a cue or something in the music was, like, called The Kiss or something, but that it, like, had this, like, somber like, it ended, like, on such a somber chord, and she remembered thinking, like, it's called The Kiss, but it's so sad. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I want to know more about, like, just kind of the way that the music tells the story so well once it's in the film. Like, does that track when you're recording? Because, I mean, they're likely not recording everything in order either, so they probably can't really figure out, I mean, they all have cue numbers on them, I suppose, so you can kind of figure out sequence of events, but, like, I don't know, like, can you pick out specific plot points having no knowledge of the film whatsoever other than the music that you're recording that may or may not end up in the final film?
Yeah, very good question. Okay, I just looked at the Rise of the Skywalker cue list, and there is a track there is a cue, 8M40, The Kiss. So her memory was correct on that, where she was like, there's a kiss, but it's sad, which would have been so, if I were on that session, I would have been like, who is kissing in this film? And why is it sad? Oh my gosh. Like, I feel like that would be a big spoiler, but then again, maybe I wouldn't have put 2 and 2 together. Who knows?
Also, though, like, composers, I think, was I talking to David Russell? I feel like I was talking to David Russell about this. I'm not 100% sure, but
who's done Rebels, he's doing Ahsoka as well.
Very excited. I think it was him, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know composers talk about, like, they have to be careful what they name things on cue sheets, so as not to, like, especially for something like Star Wars, like, so that you don't give the musicians too much information on what's going to happen in the show, the film, whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like looking at the cue sheet for The Rise of Skywalker, like there is some, it's a lot of it's pretty vague. Like some of it's not like, but through the jungle, Rey trains, ready to be a Jedi. Sometimes the cue names like are just some dialogue that's happening at the time. Quicksand, Lando, Knights of Ren, Ochi and the Tunnel Monster, Rey's Incredible Hand. He Won't Remember is the name of one. So like overall, the cue names don't say that much, except like Rey's trip to Palpatine, sure. Saber toss. Horses number 2, parents, like they're kind of vague overall.
I know they're definitely like films, mostly I think not as recently, where there'll be a cue title like so-and-so dies. And then the musicians are like, well, I wonder what happens.
Well, yeah, Return of the Jedi has the Emperor confronts Luke. Let's see, Leia is wounded, the Emperor's death, Vader's death. Those are cue titles.
Cue names have gotten as like
more vague.
Spoiler culture and secrecy has gotten so much more intense. Like cue names have progressively gotten more and more vague over time to try to prevent that type of, musicians guessing what's going to happen and then letting it slip to someone or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. That makes sense. Should we continue? Wait, well, okay. Well, we're talking about Ben's theme. And so I'm going to pull up a couple interesting ways to visualize it because first of all, like, let's talk about musically what makes them different, obviously, and what makes them the same. So let's see. For the first thing I'll share is, will it be okay. I'm going to share my screen and what I'm about to show is, okay, not the entire thing, just a little bit of it, is this, let's see, can you see that? It's probably really small.
Yep.
Oh, you can't see this? Oh, okay, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
So a guest of the show, Dennis Ham, who is the one that had the really ridiculous ear, the jazz pianist. He's Thundercats pianist, etc. He's an amazing pianist, and he was like doing all the ridiculous ear. Anyway,
I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
I wish my ear was that good.
He was like, I thought my ear was good until I spoke to Dennis, and I was like, oh my god.
See, like the thing for me is like if something's in low register, I always think it's minor. Like there's no I'm just like, yep, that's minor.
That's because you play flute, and that's because I play violin.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily think low register is minor, but I
can't discern pitches in the low register.
Exactly. That's it. That's what it is. In the low registers, my pitch abilities have a much lower fidelity there. It's very grainy down there for me. Okay, so.
Yep.
So Dennis has been like, I'll put a link in the show notes, but like on the episode, he kind of ran us through this like test at the end of it, which was it was like he played a bunch of intervals and my screen is a mess. Don't know why. He played a bunch of intervals and kind of challenged everyone to think about what emotions they were feeling. Because he has this whole like project thing where he's developing a project where you can have the emotions basically it's very hard to explain. Basically, he did the test. Okay, listeners, you probably remember he would play a note and then he'd play like another note and he'd be like, what emotion? And then he'd be like, yearning, something. And he'd be like, he went through every interval, basically. And then he did it also with changing the root. And basically, he feels like a chord the emotions that you feel will likely be like a combination of the emotions you feel from each interval, basically, if that makes sense.
Huh.
And I mean, it's obviously everyone has a different interpretation of that, but there are just some commonalities that he's picked up on anyway. So the point is he's developing this like just way to visualize, like a visualizer that will like, you know, show emotions for what you play. So he has a beta, he shared a beta with me of like his tool is called Sentisonics. And basically I have my MIDI keyboard attached. So I'm gonna play the two different themes and just, let's see, you can see, okay, wait, I'm gonna clear that. So if I just play one note, you can see just the root pops up. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. And then if I add another note, you see major 7 pops up, and then emotions pop up. Yeah. And if I add another one, it like, yeah, so basically, see, I'm playing all these, I'm playing just, notes to make up a chord, and the emotions are popping up that make up each interval, which is, for this, it's brightness, yearning, mysticism, and so if I put in Kylo's normal theme, okay, the emotions that pop up are dread and sadness. And then there's like some sub ones that pop up. Peace, mysticism, suspense, hope. But basically, so we have root, tritone. Anyway. And then if you pop in, okay, obviously this is all subjective, and there's like a chart down here where you can substitute different emotions, but these are the ones that are like most tracked amongst the participants who felt. Okay, so the new one would be, and if you look at the emotions that pop up, it's brightness, yearning. And then the sub ones are like bewitchment, rebellion, and wistfulness. So it's interesting to like just pop in different themes and see brightness, eeriness, that would be that one little bar from Psalm of the Sith. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. It's, a fun little tool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So
I could lose hours
I
on
know.
that.
I know. It's just like, yeah, totally. And I wonder if people could use it to like reverse engineer chords that they want to write or something, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because it's not just chords. Like it will, until you reset it, it will pick up like a melody. Like it'll pick up all of that and tell you the emotions that you're evoking with that. Which, for him doing jazz solos, I can imagine that just it like pops up with all these things. Like it's so all over the place. The new theme for Kylo, really all it is a major 7 chord.
Yeah.
Which is I think of it as like a very happy chord.
Yeah.
Happy and like wistful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how just changing a couple notes from makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Good job, John Williams. But yeah, it's such an easy little change. And then when it modulates up, it again, so this is B major 7, then it goes C major 7. If I continue, and if you're someone that pays attention to pitch class stuff, the Kylo Ren's like normal theme would be fort number 418, and then the major 7th chord would be fort number 420. Just FYI. Okay. Now let's continue listening on the soundtrack, because I think there's something interesting in the modulation. So B major 7, C major 7.
Good.
So okay, so a lot has happened. When Palpatine says good, that is after Rey turns around and faces him. And obviously then we cut back to Ben again because we hear his theme again, but it's like faster this time. It's like faster and more intense. And it is when Ben is like running and, you know, doing the jump. We heard his little fall there. We heard his little, you know, we didn't hear him say ow, but we were just getting to the ow spot there. Do you have any thoughts while I put an image on screen of this TIE fighter?
Yeah. Right after like the first initial 2 Good Boy Ben themes, there's like this kind of rising line in the horn that for me just kind of adds to the positivity of the theme and the music, just kind of like reinforces, you know, he's good now.
Yeah, it's like his spirit's lifting or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so that was something that caught my ear this time around that I hadn't really noticed before. So what's great about these scores is you notice something new every time you listen to them.
I know.
And then there's the, you know, the faster, more intense version with, you know, Williams adding his brother in to kind of build that faster rhythm to it.
It gives it more purpose, the
Lots of
timpani.
thoughts. Yeah, more purpose. That's what it does, for sure. Timpani is good at that.
Let's listen to that again. Or were you finished? No, keep going.
Yeah, that was pretty much. There's a lot there.
I know. Okay, so let's start with the Good Boy Ben theme again. So, just strings and brass, basically.
Good.
Now, 1. C major 7 again. Ow.
There's also like that. Yeah, there's also like that rising little wind line, like as he's falling, like kind of reverse, like it's kind of Mickey Mousing because it's as he's falling that the winds are playing this little upwards run.
Oh, okay.
But it's going up instead of down, which is really interesting. Most falling
would
and
go
Mickey Mousing would go down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's running, different shots. That's the brass line you were talking about, by the way. I don't actually know if those are the notes, but that vibe. And then we're cutting to Rey pulling herself together, turning around to Sidious. Where things tense. Now we're back to Ben. That part is the rising part you're talking about while he's falling?
I think it's after this second little theme. Good Boy Ben theme.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what to make of that.
It's just like I feel like it's just everything in that couple of seconds, other than that little brief cut to Rey and Palpatine, everything's just kind of lifting.
Yeah, emotionally, even if he's falling, it's like he is continuing to like get up. And, yeah. Because it does make sense there. Like it doesn't feel off or anything.
Yeah. And it definitely like that's kind of the moment where Rey realizes she has hope of getting through this and saving her friends without, you know, having to turn to the dark side. It's like she's like, oh, Ben's here. Like it kind of it's not just a like uplifting of Ben's character in the sense that he's, you know, good now, but it's also him bringing hope to Rey. So that might be why. It might just be like kind of keeping the uplifting spirit of the section going.
Yeah, it is like how Ben is affecting the bigger picture, which is like different from Ben. I guess I see Ben as overall a selfish character, just in that he's going through his struggle. It's very much about him and what he's going through. But here it's like where he is in his journey, he's like using it to uplift and to affect others. Like he like he could easily go on this journey and become redeemed or whatever, but then like keep it to himself and go like, oh, I'm going to go to Octo now and I'm going to read some Jedi text. But like he didn't keep it within himself. The change to goodness wasn't just for him. He immediately is like, I need to make myself of use and do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just I love that because the timpani is driving. It's not just like on a couple beats. It does 4 beats in a row.
Yeah.
So it's like just pushing him. It's like, okay, gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal. So there's you never hear Kylo Ren's Redeemed theme twice in a row in the same key. It's always like it's like going up. So when it's faster, then it's in A flat major. It's always like, what's the inversion called? It's like in the third inversion or whatever. It's the one where the root note's on the top. Yeah.
Yeah, third inversion.
Yeah. So A flat major 7, and then it goes up to C major 7. And maybe a coincidence, but, interesting to me that these are the modulation is like, it's between those two keys in that is the associative progression for like heroism, like rebel fanfare. Wait, no. Just these two like chords are, I don't know. I feel that the modulation there feels like it. You know how some modulations take you to like a different emotional place, or like, oh, it's like there's dread or there's something else. This continues to feel like we're ramping up, like in the heroic stuff. And it goes up, like he's not giving up. And then he jumps. Ow. And then so now we're on the steadfast.
Go without us. We're taking this.
No music.
Down.
What? How?
We're gonna hit the command deck. Rose, please, go.
Go! Go! I'll get the trigger!
The ritual begins. She will strike me down.
Okay, Sith whispers. Obviously.
Down and pledge herself as a Sith.
Yeah, and that's the end of the minutes. But you can already hear it's going to be Kylo Ren's Redeemed theme again, as we see or Ben is now running again, like he's back up.
And there's actually right before that, like you really can't hear it in the film at all. I did not notice it until I was rewatching these 5 minutes over and over again yesterday. The Emperor's theme is there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just before the next Good Boy Ben theme. It's the Emperor's theme in, I think it sounds like bassoons, low brass, maybe low strings, maybe male choir. It's kind of hard to hear it. It's easier to hear on the For Your Consideration album.
On Parents?
And no, it's the next track, I think. I think it's the beginning of the next track.
Okay.
Because like when I was like playing the tracks to like figure out, okay, which ones are these 5 minutes and all, I was like, oh, nope, that's not it, because it starts on the Good Boy Ben theme. And then I was listening to it again, and I heard just the tail end of the Emperor's theme just before the Good Boy Ben theme, and I was like, wait a minute, is it actually there?
Oh,
And
interesting.
you have to listen really, really closely to even hear the beginning, and it's still like kind of very, very muffled, very under the texture. You can barely hear it, but it's there.
Okay, well, let's listen to the fit for your consideration. Well, here it's obvious.
It's there.
Wait, this whole thing is... Yeah, it is the same one. Okay. How... It must... Wait.
It's
very,
very,
so
very
inaudible.
quiet.
So is it while... Is it during... Is it after the ritual begins, or is it like...
I think so, yeah. I think
Okay.
that's where it starts.
Okay, I'm gonna...
It's 12 seconds from the end of the
Okay.
minutes.
All right.
The ritual begins. She will strike me down and pledge herself as a Sith.
Oh, I hear it. Okay, like it's cut off. It's just a part of it.
Yeah, it's so
oh my
quiet,
God,
and
that
it's
is
just,
really
like,
tucked away.
And I was
It's
like,
interesting.
wow.
Because as we were listening to it before you pointed it out, I was thinking, oh, I heard a minor third, but then I was like, oh, I think it's the sound design. So I just kind of disregarded it.
Yeah, I thought that too initially, and I was like, no, it sounds like a bassoon.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I hear that kind of double reed quality to it.
Yeah, I mean, confirmed from listening to the soundtrack, to the For Your Consideration soundtrack. That's great. You pointed out something that I didn't notice. That's awesome. Well, we're at the end of the minutes. Is there anything in your notes that you didn't get to talk about, or just like stuff about the film in general?
I mean, like, one thing I was thinking about as we were kind of talking about various effects on like Palpatine's voice and stuff was just how different the voices sound in like the Sith chamber versus like discussing things in the battle, and like how that's on top of the, you know, background sounds of the thunder and the blasters and the engines and all, like just the vocal quality really kind of distinguishes the two spaces, where it's no longer echoey or anything with the, like with Poe and Finn and Jannah and that one line that Rose has.
I know.
Like it's very distinct, and they really, you know, it's not just the sound design and in terms of like the Foley that's distinguishing these two spaces, that it's also
the nature of the
space.
What
they're doing to and it's very distinct, and it's really, really interesting. And they definitely did well in the sound design in this film as a whole. Like the sound design, I feel like, is one of the strongest aspects of this film for me.
Yeah. I think they've nailed this. I mean, I haven't gone through The Force Awakens 5 minutes at a time yet, so I don't have the same level of detail for that yet. But Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, I feel very positively about the sound design. And I do feel like it was done really carefully. I feel like I don't think Skywalker sound or whatever ever really dropped the ball completely on sound design.
I know.
But like just sometimes it's rougher in the shows. And you know, sometimes there are just
definitely
choices.
some moments where it's like,
Yeah. And sometimes there are choices that don't feel like mistakes, but just feel like an artistic choice that they've made that I don't necessarily like, but it does feel like it's internally consistent as a choice. I'm talking about the way some aliens are voiced or ADR'd. But I love the sound design of Exegol. I think it is appropriately super creepy and provides a nice contrast to the rest of the settings in the film, and then also it sounds distinct as a setting of evil things. You know, it's very different from Mustafar. It's very different from the Death Star. It's very different. You know,
and there's some sounds in Exegol that are like very, very quiet that I've noticed in my rewatching of the film last night. That was like, it sounds like metal groaning or something. Like what it reminded me of was like the Titanic sinking in James Cameron's film, where it's like all this metal's groaning and stuff. And I'm like,
it sounds like creaking and stuff.
Like, yeah,
screeching.
And it's like it adds this kind of creepy.
It's like a nail on chalkboard, but like with metal or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know about this, so forgive me if you do, but like the lightning on Exegol was designed specifically to sound different from Force lightning because they didn't want there to be overlap. Like they didn't want it to be confusing. And the lightning on Exegol doesn't come from the sky. It comes from the core of the planet. So I guess, I know. So that's kind of why it's so gnarly and and closer than like normally you would probably hear lightning.
Yeah. So cool.
Very fun. Love to live there. Yeah. So the themes from this set of minutes were Approaching the Throne, Sith Artifacts, Wayfinder, March of the Resistance, A Section, Kylo Ren Redeemed, Sith Whisper, Emperor, and the one that was hinted at, which I'm just gonna say, I'm putting it officially in the show notes. Psalm of the Sith. I think it counted. It was referenced. Okay. The set piece, we heard the set piece theme, Finn and Jannah at War. And then on the soundtrack, you can hear material from the set of minutes on Approaching the Throne. And if you know where to stream the For Your Consideration album, you can also hear it on track 17, 18, and 19. So that's Approaching the Throne, Parents, and Coming Together, just the very beginning part. Sam, thank you for doing this with me. Are you ready for the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire?
Yep.
And as usual, do you want to hear your old answers first or not?
No, I'll hear them after.
Okay, great.
I purposely did not look at my previous answers.
That's
like
awesome.
The show notes from previous ones. So.
Someone this season has already given an answer that was like two of the same words and then one different word. Okay, question number 1. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Okay, so this one, I'm sure some of these are going to be different. Definitely dramatic, both in terms of like, you know, those dramatic choral bits that are, you know, big and bold, but also like dramatically appropriate to whatever's happening on screen. Colorful, and that comes from me watching a lot of Rebels and Clone Wars recently.
Yeah.
And then for me, it feels like home. Just because it's been such a big part of my life for my whole life. I don't remember not knowing Star Wars music. So it just kind of like every time listening to it, whether it's, you know, in the car or it comes on my playlist or in the film itself or at Tanglewood when, you know, Williams is conducting it himself, it just always feels like coming home when you hear it again.
Yeah. That's how I feel about Star Wars music too. Star Wars in general, but like Star Wars, it's
the music in particular.
Yeah, like it's not even like when people say, what kind of music do you like? It's like so close to me that I wouldn't even name Star Wars because it's like a given. Like I don't even have to express that.
Yeah.
That's how it feels like to me, where it's like, I don't even have to express it. It's like there for me. And so I find myself just like saying other stuff because I'm like, I can't even like, it's just home. Like, wait, it's home, it's family. It's, so previously you said texture, motion, thematic, and powerful, evocative, grandiose. So all 3 new words, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2. What is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
Okay, so my fun answer that is going to be answered by the time this episode comes out is will Thrawn's theme be used in Ahsoka? Is the organ returning to Star Wars?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I've been so. I have a whole to text David and be like, "Hey, David, is this being used?" And I'm like, "Nope, not going to do it. Not going to spoil it."
I have a pit.
Like I want to know, but I don't want to know. But my like real actual answer is like kind of something that I hinted at a little bit in this episode, actually. It's like getting more of the personal stories behind Star Wars, but like from the music teams and also like kind of what it means to fans and like those like, you know, those personal like connections to the music. And I've started a long-term project that's going to take months, if not longer, like more like years to complete. I'm going to be putting together a database of like Star Wars music teams that's searchable by film, by episode, or by name, or by like role. So like music editor or orchestrator or, flute, whatever the case happens to be. And ideally that is going to have a link to hopefully bios, like mini bios of these people, and any interviews that are available online have those linked as well, just kind of like as a resource for like.
That would be amazing.
I'm at the collection of names stage, so it's a long way out, but like just kind of having one spot for like kind of a history of Star Wars music and a living history of Star Wars music, and kind of collecting those stories both as a resource for fans who want to know more about the music and about the people behind the music, to show it's not, just John Williams doing this. Like, he's a major part of this, but it's not just him. All these other composers, orchestrators, musicians, editors, etc. But then also like a resource for scholars as well who are studying this stuff, so that they don't have to go looking at every single IMDb page to figure out who did
scouring
what,
all the forums, like
scouring all the forums, finding
the research grind is real.
Cue lists.
Yeah,
that's like one of my big like goals, is to eventually put together like a Clone Wars, Rebels, etc. cue list, so I don't have to keep texting David and being like, "Who wrote this cue?"
Well, it's great that you have that resource, that you know David, though.
Yeah.
But
so
still,
I'm hoping that might end up being part of my dissertation. So that might be like, a later project. I want to get this like basic thing down, and like, going as far as like specifying specific episodes of like the shows of, this
are you doing it
composer worked on
specifically
this
for the
episode,
shows
but not this,
or the films too?
Everything.
That's awesome.
Including like, I'm looking into like also like the video games and stuff that's like the older stuff where they, kind of just used music from the original trilogy, and just there's a single music editor who kind of did the editing of the music to the show. I'm also looking at like the 80s really bad animated shows that I sat through for my thesis and will never be sitting through again.
Have you read Chris Malone's document? Recording the Star Wars saga?
So,
okay, you would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So basically,
writing that down.
You do need you need it. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah,
but you do actually. So
I do need that.
Chris Malone is a okay. So the document is called "Recording the Star Wars Saga: An Analysis by Chris Malone," and basically, so he's a mastering engineer and like a film restoration, like soundtrack restoration, like expert. Like, he restores films and stuff. And his mentor Eric Tomlinson was like the super recordist for the Star Wars films, and he goes through like, what mics they used, like what pattern, like what their consoles were, like different, stuff, what happened with the different, releases of the soundtrack. Like, it is a really great historical document.
I definitely have to look at that, because like, I also just like, ideally I'll have like my contact info up there so that like people can correct me too, so that like, because like, this is a massive project. Like, there's a massive amount of people working on these films and TV shows, and there's going to be people left out because they're not on the credits or they're not in IMDb, like a lot of the musicians. So I do have a contact in the LSO archive who I'm hoping will be able to kind of give me names of musicians for the LSO, the sequels and the prequels, or originals and prequels. But just like, then also I'm going to try to reach out to these people too, and get even just like, short, like 3, 4, 5 question interviews with them that can be done, completely via email, and just like kind of trying to get, these personal stories of Star Wars music. So
I think that's like, would be so important to do. Yeah.
That's long-term goal. It'll take my whole life really, because I don't anticipate them stopping making Star Wars content anytime soon. So it'll be an ongoing project, but
well, let me know how I can help with this
will
endeavor.
do. Yeah.
Because I would love to contribute to the cause.
Yeah, of course.
Because I also want this resource for myself really bad. Yeah, those are great. Okay, that's great. Do you know what, like, no, I'm getting too in the weeds. Do you know what, like, do you want it to be more like a wiki, or do you want it to be like an Airtable? I don't know if you know what that is. Like a database where you see that things like as a table and you can like sort them in different ways.
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel
things to think about.
I don't know. I haven't thought that far, because it's probably going to be, I'm also like finishing getting a website together for myself. So it'll probably just be like kind of like Frank's catalog, where it's just like kind of posted on my website. So it's easy for me to edit it. So I don't have to go to two different places to edit and remember like login info for different places. So like, it'll be whatever I can manage through my website, but
sounds good. I'm
not technologically savvy, so this is all a new thing for me.
I'll talk to you offline, but like I have some ideas for you of things to check out.
Great.
Okay, so your old answers were more behind the scenes people, recording engineers, music editors, orchestra librarians, contractors, etc. And your question, this is funny. You have amazing consistency. And then the time before you said musician stories from recording the sequel films, particularly The Rise of Skywalker. And then before that you said, this is really funny. And then
still have that question.
Before that you said, what was it like for the musicians recording the original trilogy, particularly the first film? Did they realize that they were playing something so iconic? And I think that would be fascinating to hear in an interview. I have to like see if they knew it was gonna be like so big, or
if they knew, if they could tell from
the
music they were playing.
Yeah. Okay, final question. What is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
I've been listening to a lot of Outlander recently. Bear McCreary. Mainly because the new season's coming out and he's been doing some really cool stuff with one theme in particular. Wonderful score. Also obsessed with John Gray's theme in that score. So good.
So someone different did the theme?
No. Just like the theme itself is like one of my favorite.
John Gray. Oh, John Gray.
TV.
Okay, John Gray is a character.
For the character.
Okay.
I've also been listening to my entire 128-hour long John Williams playlist.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's probably my most listened to, which is like all the Williams scores plus all of his concert pieces that are on Spotify, plus anything he's conducted.
Can you share the playlist?
There's a lot of scores.
Just personally?
I will share the playlist.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Previously, you said The Shape of Water.
Like Indy 5.
Oh, Indy 5, which I haven't seen yet, actually. I know. I need to.
I enjoyed it a lot. The Nazi... Well, all of the new Nazi themes are really good. But the
new ones, okay.
Like, there's I can't remember how many Frank said, but 2 of them I kind of count as the same theme. I think he said there's 6 new Nazi themes.
Oh my God.
Like, they're small, but like...
Yeah.
And like the best one is the like kind of chorale-y theme, big brass chorale that's used like maybe twice within the theme in the film itself, but there's a really great recording of it in the end credit suite that my sister and I went and saw the film a second time exclusively so that we could hear in the theaters again.
Yeah.
And like you can hear the musicians breathing between phrases. Like it's so good. Yeah.
So good. Previously you said The Shape of Water, Desplat, and Spider-Man No Way Home, Chiquino. So I'm going to put you I'm going to say Outlander, and do you want to say Indy 5, or was Outlander
sure,
your answer? Okay.
Outlander and Indy 5.
Okay.
Good to me.
Well, awesome. Well, tell people where they can find you. And I know now you have to share, everyone, your talk that you gave at the John Williams conference is online. right?
Yes.
Yes.
That I sent you the link, right?
Yes, and I will
For
put it
the-
in the show notes.
For the conference. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's all mine. I also have the talk that I gave with Frank at Mammy last year.
Oh yeah,
On my YouTube channel.
Yes,
So
which
just
you have now.
My name,
Your
Samantha
links
Tripp.
have progressively since you've come on the show.
They're getting there.
Love it.
Hopefully by the next time I'm on the show, I will have the
like
website.
a website and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's the YouTube channel that has that, and I think it has like a couple other talks too. And yeah, I think those are on Frank's YouTube channel because we did a couple of flute piano self-arrangements of some John Williams stuff for the class.
Oh yeah,
that
I think I
TA
actually
so
saw.
I think that's on his channel though.
That's fine.
Yeah, so it's really just the YouTube.
Okay, great.
And then the John Williams conference. I do have an Instagram that I haven't posted a single photo on. I don't have a profile picture or anything, but I'm thinking of using that as more.
What's your handle?
As my professional social media.
Okay,
that's a good question. I have no idea.
Okay, well, we'll put it in the show notes later.
We'll figure. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Because I think it's just like
you want to change it?
Generic one that it gave me. So I'm going to change it to something that's like actually related to what I do.
I didn't know that Instagram just assigned you a handle.
Yeah, if you don't know what to do, it's just like, here's one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, change it to something memorable.
Yeah.
That is like simple.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, fun to talk to you too.
Already looking forward to the next time. And we'll have many updates in between. Enjoy the book that you just bought. The Rest is Noise by Alex Ross. And listeners, if you want to find Star Wars Music Minute, this podcast is also on YouTube with occasional visuals. So you can go to youtube.com/Star Wars Music Minute. Also on all the normal podcast platforms. And if you want to, have more conversation about stuff not on social media platforms, I do have a Discord server. Patrons and guests of the show are all have access to join or whatever. Well, however you say that. The way that you join it is by becoming a patron or being a guest of this show. So, with that, we're almost at the end of the film. We're nearing even more juicy stuff. So it's gonna be a treat for me, and maybe not for people who hate this movie, but I think musically there's a lot of stuff in that's gonna make me cry coming up. So yeah, for sure. That's all I have for today. May the Force be with you, and see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.